They left the alien girl to die. Then a human heard a whisper, "Mom." The sun blazed overhead as Daniel Hart knelt beside the ancient hydroducts of Arcadia 4. Sweat dripped from his brow, stinging his eyes as he worked to repair the neglected systems. 10 years on this harsh planet had hardened him, but the real damage had been done before he'd ever arrived. The station fire that claimed his wife and infant daughter had left him hollow, existing rather than living. His diagnostic tablet beeped, indicating a blockage downstream. As Daniel moved along the riverbank, something caught his eye, a strange cylindrical object bobbing in the current, lodged against one of the intake filters, probably more debris from the Novosphere laboratories. He waded into the shallows and reached for the object, a transparent capsule roughly the size of a small duffel bag. As his fingers touched the smooth surface, the capsule trembled. Then he heard it, so faint he thought he might have imagined it. "Mama." Heart racing, Daniel pulled the capsule from the water. Through the semi-transparent material, he made out a small form, a blue-skinned infant, eyes barely open, the delicate network of veins beneath her skin pulsing with a dull, fading light. "Gods," he whispered, his engineer's hands already working to find the release mechanism. The capsule hissed as it opened, releasing cold, sterile air. Inside lay a baby girl, her blue skin unnaturally pale, her tiny chest rising and falling with labored breaths. Years of solitude fell away in an instant. Daniel wrapped the infant in his thermal cloak and sprinted back to his grav bike. The child felt impossibly light in his arms, as if she might simply fade away. He gunned the engine, the medical dome at least 20 minutes away at top speed. Halfway across the plains, he spotted patrol drones on his rear scanner. 3 of them, moving fast, bearing the Novosphere insignia. Behind them came 2 security skimmers, their engines screaming, "This is Novosphere security. Stop immediately and surrender the recovered property." Property. The word made Daniel's blood boil. He hunched lower over the handlebars and pushed the grav bike harder. A warning shot kicked up dust near his bike. Daniel swerved, nearly losing control. He couldn't outrun them with their superior vehicles, but he knew the terrain better. He veered sharply off the main road, diving into a narrow ravine called the Serpent's Throat. The grav bike bounced violently as it navigated the rocky passage, but Daniel held tight to the child. Behind him, he heard one of the skimmers crash. Emerging from the ravine, Daniel found himself on the outskirts of the settlement. The medical dome was just ahead, but 2 Novosphere guards were already positioned at the entrance, weapons drawn. Daniel spotted Dr. Alice Varon near the service entrance. Without hesitation, he drove straight for her. She hurried to meet him, already shouting orders to her staff inside. "What happened?" she demanded as Daniel dismounted. "Found her in the river," he explained breathlessly. "Some kind of stasis capsule. She's barely breathing." They had barely made it through the door when the Novosphere guards arrived. "That infant is the property of Novosphere Corporation," the lead guard announced. "Surrender it immediately." Dr. Varon turned, her small frame somehow imposing. "This is a medical facility, and this child is a patient. You have no jurisdiction here." "We have jurisdiction everywhere on Arcadia 4, the guard replied coldly, raising his weapon. A group of colonists had gathered at the entrance, drawn by the commotion. Among them were several blue-skinned Arcadians, their expressions dark with suspicion. "Is Novosphere threatening children now?" called a burly miner named Jackson. The guards exchanged glances, calculating the risk of creating a scene. Finally, the leader lowered his weapon. "This isn't over." Hours passed as Dr. Varon worked to stabilize the child. Daniel remained by the infant's side, refusing to leave even when the doctor suggested he rest. "She's responding to treatment," Dr. Varon announced finally. "Her vital signs are stabilizing. The Arcadian physiology is remarkably resilient." "Who would do this?" Daniel asked, gently touching the baby's hand. Her fingers reflexively curled around his. "I don't know, but Novosphere's interests suggest this isn't just any abandoned child. There have been rumors about experimental hybridization programs, Novosphere studying genetic compatibility between humans and Arcadians." Daniel stared at the sleeping infant. Her features were distinctly Arcadian, but there was something almost human in the curve of her brow, the shape of her nose. "What happens to her now?" he asked. "That depends," came a voice from the doorway. They turned to see a woman standing there, tall and slender, with copper-colored hair tied back in a practical braid. Her most striking feature was her skin, not fully blue like the natives, but a lighter shade that suggested mixed heritage. "Lyra," Dr. Varen greeted her. "I was hoping you'd come." Lyra approached the diagnostic bed, her movements graceful and deliberate. "She's beautiful." Daniel watched as Lyra gently stroked the baby's cheek. "You know about children like her?" "I am not a child like her, caught between two worlds," Lyra replied. "I teach at the settlement school. Many of my students are mixed heritage children." "She needs a name," Dr. Varen said. "Hope," Daniel suggested. "Her name is Hope." The next morning, as Daniel sat with Hope, 6 Nova Sphere Guard burst into the medical dome, led by a tall man with a commander's insignia. "By order of Governor Taylor, this facility is temporarily under Nova Sphere authority," the commander announced, handing Dr. Varen an official document. "We're here for the hybrid infant." Daniel rose to his feet, positioning himself between the guards and Hope's crib. "You're not taking her." The commander's hand moved to his weapon. "This doesn't have to get ugly, Hart. The governor has a legal claim to the child." "What claim?" Dr. Varen demanded, scanning the document. "This authorization is vague at best." "The specifics are classified," the commander replied. "Now step aside." Daniel glanced around the room, assessing his options. The medical dome wasn't designed for defense, and they were outnumbered, but he couldn't let them take Hope. Just then, the facility's alarm system blared to life. Emergency lights flashed, and the ventilation system began pumping out thick white smoke. "Fire in the east wing," someone shouted from the corridor. "Evacuate immediately." The guards hesitated, looking to their commander for direction. In that moment of confusion, Lyra appeared beside Daniel, a breathing mask over her face and another in her hand. "Now," she whispered, slipping the mask over his face. She already had Hope wrapped in a thermal blanket, protected from the smoke. They slipped past the disoriented guards and down a maintenance corridor that Daniel hadn't known existed. Behind them, he could hear the commander shouting orders, trying to restore order amid the chaos. "There's no fire, is there?" Daniel asked, as they emerged from a service exit on the far side of the dome. Lyra's eyes crinkled with satisfaction above her mask. "Amazing what you can do with access to the environmental controls and a little smoke canister from the emergency kit." A beat-up transport vehicle waited nearby, its engine already running. The driver, a grizzled Arcadian with facial markings that identified him as part of the Northern clans, nodded to Lyra. "This is Keelan," she explained as they climbed aboard. "He helps me with, let's call them unofficial relocations, when Nova Sphere gets too interested in certain children." "You've done this before," Daniel realized. 8 times in the past 3 years, Lyra confirmed as the transport lurched into motion. Nova Sphere's interest in hybrid children has been growing. Most births are registered and monitored, but occasionally there are those who slip through the cracks or are deliberately hidden. "Where are we going?" Daniel asked, cradling Hope protectively as the transport picked up speed, heading away from the settlement toward the eastern wilderness. "Somewhere safe," Lyra replied. "A place Nova Sphere doesn't know exists." They traveled for hours, the terrain growing increasingly rugged as they left the developed areas behind. The twin suns of Arcadia 4 began to set, casting long shadows across the landscape. Finally, Keelan steered the transport into a narrow canyon, navigating between towering rock formations until they reached what appeared to be a dead end. He stepped out and approached the rock wall, pressing his hand against a specific spot. A section of the cliff face shimmered and disappeared, revealing a hidden passage. "Projection technology," Lyra explained, seeing Daniel's surprised expression. "Salvaged from an abandoned Nova Sphere research station." The passage led to a concealed valley where a small settlement had been established. Unlike the corporate design structures of the main colony, these buildings blended harmoniously with the natural environment, constructed from local materials and partially built into the canyon walls themselves. People emerged as they arrived, a mix of humans and Arcadians, along with several children who, like Lyra, bore the distinctive features of mixed heritage. "Welcome to Haven," Lyra said. "It's not much, but it's safe." An older woman approached, her blue skin wrinkled with age, her eyes sharp and assessing as they fell on Hope. "Another one," she said, her voice tinged with both sadness and determination. "This is Elder Ninov," Lyra introduced her. She was among the first to welcome human settlers before Nova Sphere took control of the colony. The child needs medical attention, Ninav observed, gently touching Hope's forehead. Bring her to the healing house. The healing house was surprisingly well equipped, with a mix of human medical technology and traditional Arcadian remedies. A young man with advanced medical scanners examined Hope thoroughly, while Ninav prepared a solution from local plants. Her condition is stabilizing, the medic reported, but she's still weak. The stasis capsule did damage to her developing systems. The breathing route will help, Ninav said, carefully administering drops of the solution into Hope's mouth. It strengthens the life force. Daniel watched anxiously. Will she be okay? The medic nodded. With proper care, yes, but she'll need time to recover. Time is something we may not have, Lyra said grimly. Novasphere won't stop looking for her, or for us. We need to understand why this child is so important to them. Later that evening, as Hope slept under Ninav's watchful eye, Daniel and Lyra joined the community for a meal around a central fire. The atmosphere was tense. Their arrival had disturbed the settlement's careful isolation. You've put us all at risk by coming here, a human man accused, his face scarred from what looked like burn injuries. Novasphere has sensors that could have tracked your transport. We followed all the protocols, Maddox, Keelan defended. Double backing, scrambling our signature, using the mineral deposits in the eastern ranges to mask our trail. It doesn't matter, an Arcadian woman interjected. If they want this child badly enough, they'll find a way. Why would they want her so badly? Daniel asked. There must be other hybrid children. A heavy silence fell over the group. Finally, Elder Ninav spoke. Because of who her mother is. Before she could elaborate, a perimeter alarm sounded. 3 short bursts followed by silence. Someone's approaching, Maddox said, immediately on his feet. Single rider, coming fast. The settlement mobilized with practiced efficiency. Children were ushered into concealed shelters, while adults took up defensive positions. Daniel found himself handed a primitive but effective-looking bow, along with a quiver of arrows. You know how to use this? Keelan asked. Daniel shook his head. Not really. Point the sharp end at the threat and pull the string, Keelan advised dryly. Try not to hit any of us. The approaching rider turned out to be Dr. Varen, her medical bag clutched tightly as she drove her grav bike recklessly through the narrow canyon entrance. They're coming, she gasped as she dismounted. Novasphere has deployed a full security detail. They're tracking the transport's residual signature. How long do we have? Lyra demanded. An hour, maybe less, Dr. Varen replied. I came as soon as I could slip away. They're questioning everyone in the settlement. Elder Ninav took immediate charge. Prepare for evacuation. We cannot risk a direct confrontation. Evacuation? Daniel repeated. To where? There are other sanctuaries, Lyra explained. This isn't the only hidden community. What about Hope? Daniel asked. She's not strong enough to travel. I brought supplies, Dr. Varen said, opening her medical bag. Stabilizers, nutrients, everything she'll need for transport. As the community hastily packed essential supplies, Daniel returned to the healing house to check on Hope. To his surprise, he found a woman already there, leaning over the baby's crib. She whirled around at his entrance, and he recognized her immediately from colony broadcasts. Serena Talor, the governor's daughter. How did you find this place? Daniel demanded, raising the bow Keelan had given him. Serena raised her hands. Please, I'm not here to cause harm. I came alone. Why should I believe you? Because she's my daughter, Serena said, her voice breaking, and my father wants her dead. Before Daniel could respond, Lyra and Elder Ninav entered the healing house. Serena Talor, Ninav said, unsurprised. I wondered when you would finally come. You know her? Daniel asked incredulously. We've never met, Ninav clarified, but I know of her relationship with Tarek. Tarek? Daniel repeated. My child's father, Serena explained, an Arcadian warrior assigned to my security detail. We fell in love, despite knowing the risks. Your father didn't approve, Lyra guessed. Serena's laugh was bitter. My father built his power on maintaining separation between humans and Arcadians. A half-breed grandchild was intolerable to him. When he discovered I was pregnant, he imprisoned me, claiming I was suffering from mental instability. When the baby was born, they told me she had died. But you didn't believe them, Daniel said. I suspected the truth when I overheard guards talking about a disposal operation That had gone wrong, Serena replied. Then reports came of a hybrid infant being recovered near the river. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked at Hope. I had to see for myself. Nova Sphere forces are approaching, Lyra reminded them urgently. We need to move now. I can help, Serena offered. I know their protocols, their methods, and I have access to resources you don't. Daniel exchanged glances with Lerky and Ninav. Could they trust the daughter of the man hunting them? If you betray us, Ninav warned, you condemn not only us, but your own child. I would die before letting my father harm her again, Serena vowed. With Serena's help, they formulated a new plan. Instead of fleeing to another sanctuary, they would split into 3 groups. One group would create a diversion to the north, leading the Novosphere forces away from their actual location. The second group would evacuate the most vulnerable members of the community to a temporary safe location. The third group, Daniel, Lyra, Serena, and Dr. Varen with Hope, would take a risky route through the Ash Barrens, a desolate region avoided by both humans and Arcadians due to its unstable terrain and toxic dust storms. The Barrens are dangerous, Keelan warned as he helped them prepare a specialized transport designed to withstand harsh conditions. But Novosphere won't follow you there. Their equipment isn't designed for it. Where will we go once we cross the Barrens? Daniel asked. The Northern Territories, Serena replied, where Tarek's people live. They've maintained their independence from Novosphere's influence. If we can reach them, they'll protect Hope. As they prepared to depart, alarm sensors blared again, this time continuously. They're here, Maddox announced, rushing into the healing house. At least 30 soldiers with tracking equipment and heavy weapons. We're out of time, Lyra said, securing Hope in a specially designed carrier that would protect her from the environmental hazards they would face. The diversion team moved out first, creating a series of small explosions and sensor ghosts to the north of the settlement. As Novosphere forces diverted to investigate, the evacuation team slipped out through a secondary exit, a narrow tunnel that led to a network of caves beyond the valley. Daniel's group prepared to leave last, waiting until the others were safely away. Just as they were boarding their transport, the ground shook with a massive explosion. They've breached the main entrance, Keelan reported over the comm system. The diversion didn't work, or they split their forces. Go, Ninav urged them. We will hold them off as long as we can. Daniel hesitated, reluctant to leave the others to face Novosphere's forces. We can't just abandon you. This isn't about us, Ninav said firmly. It's about the child. She represents something greater than any individual. The possibility of true unity between our peoples. That is worth fighting for. Worth dying for if necessary. With a heavy heart, Daniel climbed aboard the transport. Lyra took the controls, her face set in grim determination as she activated the vehicle's camouflage system, a technology that would bend light around them, making them nearly invisible to standard sensors. They slipped out through a concealed exit on the far side of the valley, just as the sounds of weapons fire echoed behind them. Through the rear viewport, Daniel saw Novosphere soldiers storming the settlement, led by a tall figure he recognized as Commander Vex, the governor's head of security. The transport skimmed low over the ground, its engines muffled as they put distance between themselves and the conflict. Hope, secured in her protective carrier between Daniel and Serena, slept peacefully, unaware of the chaos surrounding here. How did they find us so quickly? Dr. Varen wondered aloud. Even with transport tracking, they shouldn't have been able to pinpoint the exact location. Serena's expression darkened. There must be a tracking device we missed. Something. She stopped suddenly, her hand going to a slender bracelet on her wrist. Oh no. What is it? Daniel demanded. My ID bracelet, Serena said, horror dawning on her face. All Novosphere executives have them implanted. They're supposed to be for our protection, in case of kidnapping or accidents. I never thought. She yanked the bracelet off and examined it closely. It's been modified. This isn't standard issue. Your father was tracking you, Lyra realized, her eyes on the viewport. And they're still tracking us. In the distance behind them, 2 Novosphere pursuit vehicles had appeared, closing rapidly. We need to get rid of that, Daniel said, reaching for the bracelet. Wait, Dr. Varen interrupted. If we discard it now, they'll know we've discovered it. We can use this. She took the bracelet and moved to a storage compartment, retrieving a small drone used for environmental sampling. We'll send this in another direction. Buy ourselves some time. Working quickly, she attached the bracelet to the drone and programmed a course that would take it west, away from their intended route to the Ash Barrens. The drone zipped away, and they watched the sensors as the pursuit vehicles changed course to follow it. That won't fool them for long, Lyra warned, accelerating their transport toward the ominous dark haze on the horizon that marked the beginning of the Ash Barrens. She was right. Within 20 minutes, the pursuit vehicles had reappeared on their sensors, now accompanied by an aerial unit that would be able to track them visually, regardless of their camouflage system. "We're not going to outrun them," Serena said grimly. "We don't need to," Lyra replied, pointing ahead. "We just need to reach the Barrens before they catch us." The Ash Barrens loomed closer, a vast expanse of blackened earth and jagged rock formations, perpetually shrouded in swirling toxic dust. No vegetation grew there, no animal survived. According to Arcadian legend, it was the site of an ancient cataclysm, a wound in the planet that had never healed. As they approached the boundary, warning sensors in their transport blared to life. "Toxic particulate levels exceeding safety parameters," the system announced. "Respiratory protection required." Lyra distributed breathing masks specially designed to filter the Baron's toxic dust. For Hope, Dr. Varen prepared a small, sealed environment within her carrier, complete with its own air filtration system. "The transport's external shielding will protect us from the worst of it," Lyra explained, "but if we have to leave the vehicle for any reason, these masks are the only thing standing between us and lung failure." They crossed the boundary into the Barrens, and immediately the world outside the viewport changed. Visibility dropped to mere meters as swirling clouds of black dust enveloped them. The transport's navigation system switched to ground-penetrating radar, creating a ghostly map of the terrain ahead. Behind them, the Novasphere pursuers hesitated at the boundary. Standard vehicles weren't equipped to handle the Baron's hostile environment. After a moment's pause, the aerial unit turned back, but one of the ground vehicles pressed forward, a specialized model designed for extreme conditions. "They really want this child," Daniel muttered. "It's not just about hope," Serena said quietly. "It's about control. My father can't allow any challenge to his authority, especially one that undermines his policies regarding human-Arcadian relations." The pursuit continued through the Barrens, a slow-motion chase through a nightmarish landscape. Their modified transport had the advantage of Lyra's experience. She navigated the treacherous terrain with practiced skill, avoiding the worst of the unstable ground. "How do you know this place so well?" Daniel asked, as she expertly steered around a massive sinkhole that would have swallowed them whole. "I've helped guide many people through here," Lyra replied. "It's the one route Novasphere doesn't monitor closely, too dangerous for their precious equipment." A violent impact suddenly rocked their transport. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. "They're firing on us," Dr. Varen exclaimed. "Targeting our engine housing," Lyra confirmed grimly. "They don't need to destroy us, just disable us." Another impact, more damaging than the first. The transport lurched, losing altitude until it was scraping along the ground. "We can't take another hit like that," Lyra warned. Daniel made a split-second decision. "There," he said, pointing to a narrow ravine cutting through a ridge of black rock. "Can we make it in there?" Lyra nodded, understanding his plan. Tight fit, but yes. She steered the damaged transport toward the ravine, its walls barely wide enough to accommodate them. Behind them, the Novasphere vehicle was gaining, preparing for another shot. "Everyone brace," Lyra called as they scraped into the narrow passage, metal shrieking against stone on both sides. The pursuing vehicle was too large to follow. It halted at the entrance to the ravine, unable to bring its weapons to bear effectively in the confined space. "They'll go around," Serena predicted, "or call for smaller units." "Then we need to keep moving," Daniel said. "How much farther to the other side of the Barrens?" "At least 6 hours in good conditions," Lyra replied. "With our damaged engine, maybe twice that, and we're leaking coolant." Dr. Varen checked on Hope, ensuring her protective environment remained intact. "She's stable for now, but this environment isn't good for her. The sooner we get to cleaner air, the better." They continued through the ravine until it widened into a series of interconnected canyons, a maze-like network cut deep into the barren landscape. Lyra navigated by memory and instinct, the navigation system increasingly unreliable as the transport's power fluctuated. By the time they emerged from the canyon network, night had fallen, but there was no relief from the oppressive darkness. The swirling ash clouds blocked the light from Arcadia's twin moons, creating a blackness so absolute it seemed solid. The transport's external lights provided the only illumination, creating eerie tunnels of visibility through the ash-laden air. They had managed to shake their immediate pursuers, but the vehicle's condition was deteriorating rapidly. "We need to find shelter," Lyra decided as warning indicators showed critical system failures imminent. "There's an old mining outpost about 3 kilometers ahead. We can take refuge there until daylight." The outpost proved to be little more than a collection of abandoned structures, half buried in ash drifts. They managed to guide the failing transport into what had once been a vehicle bay before the engines gave out completely. "That's it," Lyra announced, shutting down the systems to prevent an explosion. "We're on foot from here." They secured the structure as best they could, sealing gaps where toxic air might seep in. Inside one of the buildings, they found the remains of an emergency shelter, a reinforced room with its own air filtration system that still had some functionality. As they settled in for the night, Hope began to cry, a weak, distressed sound that tore at Daniel's heart. "The air quality is affecting her," Dr. Varon said, checking the baby's vital signs. "The filtration in her carrier is working, but it's not perfect, and she needs nutrition." Serena cradled her daughter, singing softly. "I never got to do this," she whispered. "Never got to hold her, comfort her." Daniel watched them, feeling both an outsider and somehow intrinsically connected to this makeshift family unit. Lyra joined him, her expression somber. "Novasphere will send search parties at first light," she said quietly, "and our transport is finished." "There must be something here we can use," Daniel replied, unwilling to accept defeat. This was a mining operation. They would have had vehicles, equipment. They searched the outpost thoroughly, finding mostly ruins and decay, but in a collapsed storage shed, Daniel discovered an old ground crawler, a heavy-duty vehicle designed for mineral collection. It was ancient technology, with treads instead of gravitational lifts, powered by a combustion engine rather than modern energy cells. "Can you make it work?" Lyra asked as Daniel examined the crawler's engine compartment. "Maybe," he replied. "The engine's intact, just needs fuel and some basic repairs. As an engineer, I've studied these old systems." "I'll help," Serena offered, joining them. "I specialized in historical technology before my father pushed me into corporate management." They worked through the night, scavenging parts from their damaged transport and the outpost's abandoned equipment. By dawn, though the perpetual gloom of the Barrens made it hard to tell, they had the crawler operational. "It's loud, slow, and about a century out of date," Daniel admitted, as the engine roared to life, belching black smoke. "But it should get us through the Barrens." They transferred their supplies and Hope's carrier to the crawler, whose sturdy construction provided better protection from the environment than they had expected. Its cabin was designed to operate in mining conditions with robust air filtration. As predicted, Novasphere search units appeared on the horizon as they departed the outpost. 3 aerial drones flying in a search pattern that would eventually bring them to the abandoned buildings. "They'll find our transport," Dr. Varon said. "Let them," Daniel replied, steering the crawler away from the outpost, its heavy treads crushing the black rock beneath them. "By then, we'll be long gone." The crawler's primitive but effective design proved perfectly suited to the Barrens. Where more advanced vehicles would struggle with the fine ash clogging their systems, the crawler simply pushed through, its mechanical simplicity its greatest strength. They had been traveling for several hours when Lyra, who had been monitoring their makeshift scanning equipment, suddenly tensed. "We've got company, something big, moving fast." Through the swirling ash, a massive shape appeared, a Novasphere excavator, repurposed as an assault vehicle. Its front bore a massive plow designed to clear anything in its path, and mounted on its upper deck was a pulse cannon that could reduce their crawler to scrap with a single shot. "They must have had it stationed at the Barren's edge," Serena said, "waiting for us to emerge." The excavator accelerated toward them, the ground shaking with its approach. Daniel pushed the crawler to its limits, but they couldn't outrun the larger vehicle. "There," Lyra pointed to a massive field of jagged rock formations rising from the ash plain. The stone forest. The excavator's too big to follow us in there. Daniel steered toward the formation, the crawler bouncing violently over the increasingly rough terrain. Behind them, the excavator gained ground, its plow lowered menacingly. They reached the edge of the stone forest just as the excavator made contact, its plow glancing off the crawler's rear section with a screech of tearing metal. The impact sent them careening forward, barely maintaining control as they plunged between the towering rock spires. The excavator, unable to follow, circled the perimeter of the formation. Its pulse cannon fired, shattering one of the massive stone columns. Debris rained down around them, and as Daniel navigated the maze-like passages between the spires. They're trying to collapse the formations on us, Lyra realized as another cannon blast echoed through the stone labyrinth. Hope wailed in distress at the noise and violent motion. Dr. Varen checked her carrier, ensuring it remained sealed against the toxic environment. We need to get her out of here soon. This stress isn't good for her. They pushed deeper into the stone forest, the excavator's attacks becoming less frequent as they moved beyond its effective range. The rock formations grew denser, creating a natural fortress that shielded them from pursuit. By late afternoon, they had reached the far side of the formation. Beyond it, the terrain of the barrens began to change. The ash drifts less frequent, the ground more stable. In the distance, they could make out a line of green, the edge of the barrens where life began again. We're going to make it, Serena said, hope in her voice for the first time since they'd begun their journey. But as they emerged from the stone forest, a final obstacle awaited them. A gorge cut across their path, too wide to cross with the crawler, too deep to descend safely. It stretched in both directions as far as they could see through the ash-laden air. We can't go around, Lyra said, consulting their crude map. It would take days, and we don't have that kind of time. Novasphere will have reinforcements searching by now. Daniel examined the gorge edge carefully. There used to be a bridge here, he said, pointing to metal supports embedded in the rock on both sides. Mining operations would have needed to cross. The bridge is gone, Dr. Varen pointed out unnecessarily. We'll make one, Daniel decided. The crawler's treads are reinforced metal, designed to be replaced section by section when damaged. If we detach them and lay them across, it would create a narrow path, Lyra finished, understanding his plan, but the crawler would be useless afterward. We don't need it once we cross, Serena said. There are Arcadian settlements not far beyond the Barren's edge. They'll help us reach the northern territories. They set to work dismantling the crawler's treads, a difficult, dangerous task in the toxic environment. Each tread section was heavy, requiring all of them working together to position it across the gorge. As they worked, Hope's condition began to deteriorate. The prolonged exposure to the Barren's environment, even filtered through her protective carrier, was taking its toll on her hybrid physiology. She needs cleaner air soon, Dr. Varen warned, administering what medication she could. Her respiratory system is under severe stress. This lent urgency to their efforts. After hours of backbreaking labor, they had created a precarious bridge across the gorge. Twin tracks of metal tread sections, barely wide enough to walk on, with a yawning chasm below. I'll go first, Daniel volunteered. Test if it holds. No, Lyra countered. I'm lighter, and I have better balance. Before anyone could argue further, she stepped onto the makeshift bridge, moving with careful precision across the metal sections. The improvised structure creaked, but held under her weight. It's stable enough, she called from the other side, but we'll need to cross one at a time. Dr. Varen went next, carrying her medical supplies. Then came the most dangerous part, transporting Hope. They secured her carrier with ropes, creating a pulley system that allowed Lyra and Dr. Varen to draw her across, while Daniel and Serena stabilized the ropes from their side. Halfway across, one of the tread sections shifted, tilting alarmingly. Hope's carrier swung out over the abyss, held only by the straining ropes. Pull her up, Daniel shouted, shouted, desperately trying to stabilize the bridge. Lyra and Dr. Varen hauled on the ropes, muscles straining, gradually bringing the carrier back over the metal path and continuing the perilous journey to the far side. When Hope was safely across, Serena prepared to follow. Just then, the distinctive sound of Novasphere aerial units reached them. They've found us, Daniel said urgently. Go, now! Serena crossed quickly, her desperation to reach her child overcoming any fear of the treacherous bridge. Daniel followed immediately after, the metal sections groaning beneath his weight. As he neared the far side, the aerial units appeared overhead. 3 combat drones armed with targeting lasers. They circled once, then opened fire on the makeshift bridge. The first shots missed, striking the canyon walls, but the third hit a tread section just behind Daniel, sending it tumbling into the gorge. The sudden gap left him stranded on the remaining sections, which were now unstable and shifting. "Jump!" Lyra shouted, extending her hand as far as she could reach. Daniel gathered himself and leaped across the gap as another shot hit the bridge. He caught Lyra's hand, and she and Serena pulled him to safety just as the remaining sections collapsed into the gorge. The drones circled above, unable to get a clear shot as the group took cover beneath an overhang in the canyon wall. Eventually, they moved off, presumably to report their location and bring in ground forces. "We need to move quickly," Daniel urged. "They'll be back with reinforcements." They made their way up a steep path from the gorge, Hope's condition adding urgency to their pace. As they crested the ridge, the boundary of the Ash Barrens came into view, a stark line where the blackened wasteland gave way to scrubby vegetation and clearer air. They crossed that boundary as the twin suns began to set, removing their breathing masks for the first time in days. The air, though thin and cold at this altitude, tasted impossibly sweet after the toxic atmosphere of the Barrens. Hope's condition improved almost immediately once they were able to open her carrier to the cleaner air. Her breathing eased, and some color returned to her blue-tinged skin. "We still have a long journey to the Northern Territories," Lyra warned, as they made camp for the night in a sheltered valley. "And Novasphere won't give up the pursuit." "But we've bought ourselves time," Dr. Varen pointed out, "and Hope is stronger than I expected. Her hybrid physiology seems to adapt quickly." That night, as they huddled around a small fire, Serena told them more about Tarek and the circumstances that had led to Hope's conception and birth. "He was assigned as my guide and protector during diplomatic missions to the Arcadian settlements," she explained. "We spent months together, learning about each other's cultures, finding common ground. When we realized our feelings went beyond friendship, we tried to resist. We both understood the political implications. But love doesn't follow political boundaries," Lyra said softly. Serena nodded. "When I discovered I was pregnant, Tarek wanted to announce it publicly, to force the issue of integration into the open. But I knew my father too well. He would have found a way to destroy Tarek and control the narrative. So we planned to escape together, to reach the Northern Territories where Tarek's clan could protect us." "What went wrong?" Daniel asked. "Betrayal," Serena replied bitterly. "Someone in my security detail discovered our plans and reported to my father. Tarek was arrested on false charges, and I was placed under what they called protective isolation for the duration of my pregnancy. After Hope was born and they told me she had died, I was gradually reintegrated into colonial society, under strict supervision, of course. And now your father will label you a traitor for helping us," Dr. Varen observed. "I was already a traitor in his eyes," Serena said, looking down at Hope sleeping peacefully in her arms. "Now I'm simply choosing which side deserves my loyalty." The next morning, they set out for the Northern Territories. The landscape grew increasingly mountainous, with dense forest covering the slopes. They moved cautiously, aware that Novasphere patrols could be searching the region. Their caution proved warranted when, midday, they spotted a Novasphere transport ship flying low over the valley they had been about to enter. They took cover in a dense thicket, watching as soldiers disembarked and began a systematic search pattern. "They're between us and the Northern Territories," Lyra whispered. "We need another route." "There," Serena pointed to a narrow pass cutting between 2 peaks to the east. "That leads to the Falling Waters. It's a longer route, but the terrain is difficult for mechanized units." The detour added days to their journey. They traveled by night when possible, hiding during daylight hours. Their supplies dwindled, forcing them to forage for native plants that Lyra identified as safe for consumption. Hope continued to grow stronger each day, her eyes tracking their movements, tiny hands reaching for faces and objects with increasing coordination. Despite the dangers surrounding them, Daniel found himself forming a deep attachment to the child, a feeling he had thought lost to him forever after the death of his own daughter. He wasn't alone in this attachment. He often caught Lyra watching Hope with a mix of joy and old sorrow in her eyes. And even Dr. Varen had developed a protective bond with the infant. On the 5th day of their journey, they reached the Falling Waters, a series of stepped plateaus where countless streams cascaded from one level to the next, creating a natural maze of waterways and pools. The constant sound of falling water masked their movements, providing some security as they navigated the challenging terrain. It was there that they encountered the first Arcadian patrol from the Northern Territories, warriors on foot, armed with bows and spears rather than the energy weapons used by Nova Sphere forces. Their skin was a deeper blue than the Arcadians from the settled regions, and they wore distinctive facial markings identifying their clan affiliations. The patrols surrounded them before they even realized they had been spotted, appearing silently from the surrounding forest with weapons ready. "State your purpose in these lands," the leader demanded in heavily accented standard. Serena stepped forward, Hope cradled in her arms. "I seek Tarek of the River Clan. I am Serena Talor, and this is his daughter." The warriors exchanged glances, clearly recognizing Serena's name. After a tense moment, the leader nodded. "Follow. The elders will decide your fate." They were escorted deeper into the Northern Territories, through forests that grew increasingly lush and vibrant. Unlike the controlled environments of the colony, here nature flourished without human interference, creating an ecosystem of stunning beauty and complexity. By nightfall, they reached a settlement unlike any Daniel had seen on Arcadia 4. Instead of the prefabricated structures of the human colony, these dwellings were integrated with the natural environment, built into living trees or shaped from the landscape itself. The arrival of outsiders, especially a human group, including the daughter of Governor Taylor, created a sensation. Arcadians gathered to watch as they were led to a central gathering space where the clan elders awaited them. 7 elders sat in a semicircle, their aged blue faces solemn and evaluating. Among them, slightly apart, sat a younger male Arcadian whose posture and facial markings indicated high status. His eyes widened as he caught sight of Serena and the bundle in her arms. "Tarek," Serena whispered, her voice thick with emotion. He rose, seemingly unable to believe what he was seeing. "They told me you had died in childbirth," he said, his voice rough with suppressed emotion. "That both of you were lost." "And they told me our daughter had died," Serena replied. "We were both deceived." Tarek approached slowly, his eyes fixed on Hope. When he reached them, he gently touched the infant's face with a trembling hand. Hope gurgled happily, grabbing his finger with surprising strength. "She knows you," Serena said softly. Somehow she knows her father. The reunion was interrupted by the eldest of the clan leaders, who rapped his staff against the ground for attention. "This touching scene does not change the fact that you have brought Nova Sphere's wrath to our doorstep. Governor Taylor will not allow his daughter and grandchild to remain here unchallenged." "We didn't lead them here," Daniel objected. "We took every precaution." "Nova Sphere has been probing our borders for days," another elder countered. "Their ships circle just beyond our territory. They may not know exactly where you are, but they know the direction you fled." "Then help us end this conflict," Lyra suggested. "Not through war, but through truth." "What truth could possibly sway a man like Governor Taylor?" the first elder asked skeptically. "The truth that his actions have been documented," Dr. Varen said, producing a small data crystal from her medical bag. "I've recorded everything. Serena's testimony, medical evidence of the attempt on Hope's life, genetic confirmation of her parentage. If this information were made public throughout the colony, the governor would face serious consequences," Serena finished, "both from Earth Central and from the colonists themselves. Mixed relationships may be discouraged, but attempted infanticide is a capital crime under bond colonial law." The elders conferred among themselves, speaking in rapid Arcadian that even Lyra struggled to follow. Finally, Tarek addressed them. "My people will not turn away a child of our blood, nor those who risk their lives to protect her," he declared. "But neither will we invite war with Nova Sphere. We must find another solution." "I have one," came a new voice from the edge of the gathering. All heads turned to see a figure emerge from the shadows. Elder Ninov, her clothing torn and dirty, her face bearing fresh scars but her eyes as determined as ever. "Ninov," Lara exclaimed, "we thought you were captured, or worse." "Some were," Ninov acknowledged grimly, "but many escaped, and in their pursuit of you, Nova Sphere revealed their true nature to all of Arcadia 4. She stepped into the center of the gathering. The attack on Haven was witnessed and recorded by those who escaped. Images of Nova Sphere soldiers firing on unarmed civilians, including children, have spread throughout the colony. Public opinion has turned sharply against the governor. Even his corporate allies are distancing themselves. "My father won't give up power easily," Serena warned. "He may have no choice," Ninov replied. "A delegation from Earth Central arrived yesterday, responding to reports of the unrest. They've called for a public inquiry into Nova Sphere's governance of the colony." This news changed everything. Earth Central's authority superseded even Nova Sphere's corporate rights on Arcadia 4. If they were investigating the governor's actions, there was a real chance for justice. "We need to return," Daniel realized, "to testify." "It's too dangerous," Tarek objected, placing a protective arm around Serena and Hope. "The governor will still have loyal forces. Without our testimony and proof of Hope's existence and identity, it becomes one word against another," Dr. Varon pointed out. "The governor is a skilled manipulator. He could twist this to his advantage." The debate continued late into the night, with valid concerns on both sides. In the end, it was Serena who made the decision. "I've been running and hiding long enough," she said firmly. "It's time to face my father, not just for Hope's sake, but for all the children like her, for the future of this colony." 2 days later, they arrived at the colony's central administrative dome, escorted by a mixed guard of Northern Territory warriors, an independent colonist militia, who had rallied against Nova Sphere's increasingly repressive tactics. The Earth Central delegation, 3 stern-faced officials with the authority to override colonial governance in cases of serious misconduct, had convened a public hearing. The dome's central chamber was packed with colonists, both human and Arcadian, all eager to witness what many were already calling the Judgment of Taylor. Governor Taylor sat alone at the respondents' table, his usual entourage of advisors and security conspicuously absent. His face betrayed no emotion as Serena entered with Hope in her arms, flanked by Daniel, Lyra, Dr. Varon, and Tarek. The lead delegate, a silver-haired woman named Director Chen, called the hearing to order. "We are here to investigate serious allegations against Governor Alexander Taylor and the Nova Sphere Corporation regarding their governance of Arcadia 4 colony, specifically charges of attempted infanticide, false imprisonment, abuse of corporate authority, in violation of the Colonial Charter's provisions on equal treatment of indigenous populations." The evidence was presented methodically. Dr. Varon's medical records proving Hope's near-death state when found and her genetic relationship to both Serena and Tarek. Testimony from Haven survivors about Nova Sphere's attack on a peaceful settlement, and most damning of all, Serena's account of her father's direct order to dispose of the half-breed abomination. Throughout it all, Governor Taylor maintained his composure, showing emotion only when Serena detailed how he had lied to her about Hope's death. Even then, it was merely a tightening of his jaw, a brief flash of something unreadable in his eyes. When his turn came to respond, he rose with the confident bearing of a man accustomed to power. "The allegations against me are the product of my daughter's unfortunate mental instability, exacerbated by her relationship with an Arcadian male who manipulated her for political purposes. The infant in question was believed stillborn, a tragic medical outcome, not a criminal act. As for the operation at the unauthorized settlement called Haven, our forces were responding to reports of kidnapping and seditious activity." His defense was smooth, practiced, and might have been effective had it not been for one final piece of evidence. "The delegation recognizes Head of Security Riker," Director Chen announced. A man entered from a side door, Commander Vex's second-in-command, a career Nova Sphere officer who had always seemed utterly loyal to the governor. He approached the witness position, his face grave. "Commander Riker," Director Chen began, "you served as Governor Taylor's head of personal security for 7 years, correct?" "Yes, Director." "And were you present at the birth of Serena Taylor's child?" "I was," Riker confirmed. "Governor Taylor ordered me to oversee the medical team personally." What happened after the birth? Riker's voice remained steady, but his hands gripped the podium tightly. The child was born healthy, a female hybrid with normal vital signs. Governor Taylor ordered me to make it disappear permanently. His exact words were, "No trace, no body, no record." The chamber erupted in murmurs of shock and outrage. Governor Taylor's face finally showed emotion, fury mixed with disbelief as he stared at his trusted officer. "You betrayed me," he said, his voice barely audible over the noise. "I disobeyed an illegal order," Riker corrected. "I couldn't kill an innocent child, regardless of her heritage. So I placed her in a stasis pod programmed to maintain life support for 12 hours and set it adrift in the river, hoping someone would find her." He looked directly at Daniel. "I calculated that repair crews checked the water intakes daily. It was the only chance I could give her without directly defying the governor, which would have meant my immediate replacement by someone who would have carried out his orders without hesitation." "A convenient story," Governor Taylor sneered. "Where is your proof of these alleged orders?" Riker removed a small device from his uniform pocket. "Security officers' neural recorders," he explained. "Standard equipment for all high-level Nova Sphere security personnel. They capture audio-visual data from the officer's perspective and store it in encrypted format that not even the wearer can access without proper authorization." He handed the device to Director Chen. "I've carried this evidence for months, waiting for a moment when it could be presented to authorities beyond the governor's influence." The hearing was adjourned while the delegation reviewed the recording in private. When they returned, Director Chen's expression was grim. "Based on the evidence presented, including Commander Riker's testimony and recording, this delegation finds Governor Alexander Taylor guilty of ordering the murder of an infant child, falsifying medical records, wrongful imprisonment, and multiple violations of the Colonial Charter. He is hereby removed from office, effective immediately, and will be returned to Earth for formal trial." As security officers, these from Earth Central's own force, not Nova Sphere, moved to take the governor into custody, he locked eyes with Serena one last time. "You chose them over your own blood," he said, his voice cold. "No, Father," Serena replied, holding Hope a little tighter. "I chose love over hate. I chose life over death. And in doing so, I honored our family far more than you ever did." In the aftermath of the governor's removal, Arcadia 4 entered a period of transformation. The Earth Central delegation established an interim governing council comprising both humans and Arcadians, with Serena appointed as liaison between the colonial administration and the Northern Territories. For Daniel, the changes were more personal. The family he had lost could never be replaced, but in Hope, Lyra, and their unusual extended family, he had found a new purpose, a reason to build rather than merely exist. 1 month after the hearing, they gathered at a hillside overlooking the colony. Daniel, Lyra, Serena, Tarek, and Hope, now growing stronger daily. The setting suns cast a golden glow over the landscape, turning the river where Hope had been found into a ribbon of light. "The council approved the integration program as today," Serena announced. "All restrictions on human-Arcadian relationships have been lifted, and mixed heritage children will have full rights as citizens." "It won't solve everything overnight," Tarek cautioned. "There are still those who cling to the old prejudices." "But it's a beginning," Lyra said, watching Hope as she crawled energetically on the grass between them, her movements becoming more coordinated each day. "A chance for her to grow up in a world that accepts her as she is." Daniel nodded, finding himself unexpectedly at peace. "Sometimes the smallest things have the greatest impact," he observed. "One child adrift in a river changed the course of an entire world." Hope chose that moment to pull herself up, using Daniel's leg for support. She stood unsteadily, her violet eyes bright with determination. "Dada," she said clearly, reaching for him. Then she turned to Lyra, her other hand extended. "Mama." Finally, she looked at Serena and Tarek, a smile of pure joy lighting her face. "Mama, Dada." The adults exchanged glances of surprise and emotion. Like everything else about Hope, her understanding of family defied conventional boundaries. She recognized all 4 of them as her parents, those of blood and those of choice. "Smart girl," Daniel said, scooping her up into his arms. You already understand what took the rest of us so long to learn. As they made their way back to the settlement, Hope babbling happily in Daniel's arms, he reflected on the strange journey that had brought them to this point. From a moment of desperate rescue beside a river to standing at the beginning of a new era for Arcadia 4, their paths had become irrevocably intertwined, bound together by the child who had been meant to die, but instead had brought new life to them all.